Wednesday, meaning we are sitting on the sofa. I don't know about you, but this sofa has brought so many great topics, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you haven't watched neither one of them. So, hey, thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in live, or if you're tuning in after the recording, I have today my lovely guest, Miss Evelyn Whitney. I think she's become a regular, which we love her to death over here. And so the topic today, we are going to dive in this lovely cheating is not an accident. Um, and like I was telling Miss Whitney behind the stage, that this topic is it's close to me. And I wanted to talk about it due to cheating has become normalized in so many ways. People don't call it cheating. They give it this fantabulous word, side piece. And I mean, folks are glorifying the side piece as well. I love being his or her side piece, or they're lining up to be side pieces. And I don't know. Just for me personally, I think that you're selling yourself short if you wake up in the morning and you're happy that you're getting the lesser end of someone. So we're going to talk about that today. And for those who don't know, Miss Evelyn, if you don't mind introducing yourself, I know you've done it repeatedly, but we have newcomers sometimes.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am Evelyn Whitney, author of the book TruthSpeak: Some Real Reasons Men and Women Don't Communicate. There are people who believe that the differences in the way that men and women process information make it difficult for them to communicate. But we have abilities with and our own possession that will help us to overcome those difficulties if we just tap into the things that we already know to do. And this is a guide for how to explore those things and capitalize upon them to improve your communicative exchanges.
Awesome. And I do have that book on my person, and I am reading it chapter for chapter, which we have created episodes for that we've brought to the sofa. And soon we will be doing chapter three. If you would like to indulge in the first two chapters and listen to the lovely Miss Whitney go over this great book, I really realized that, and I think I say this to her a lot, that the book was purposely placed to the a candidate in need called communication. Yeah, me and communication, and I don't mean to my partner. It's just communication. Period. I think is a lot of our downfall when it comes to relationships.
That's right.
And so yeah, it's a great book. Um, Once done, I just may be happy enough to give out some free books on my behalf for Miss Whitney. So we're going to have to look into that. And but the topic at hand, madam. So I was so taken back when I looked up the definition for cheating, right? I came up with three definitions where the first one I came across: to influence or lead by deceit, trick, or um, ooh, artifice, huh. Word Artifice. Do not know how to pronounce that. Let's see. C
Artifice.
E.
Yes.
Oh, look at there. Thank you. All right. The second one is to be sexually unfaithful,
Mhm.
usually used with on was cheating. Well, or the sentence usually used with was cheating on his wife type thing. So the sexually unfaithful is basically the one that we're referring to. But I do want to go back to the first and this third one that I'm going to say, to position oneself defensively near a particular area in anticipation of a play in that area. The which like in the game, the shortstop was cheating towards second base, right?
Right.
So I want to come back to those two outside of being sexually unfaithful.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we was talking back and behind the stage, this topic is dear to me because I've been on both sides of the spectrum. And as you guys know, who's watched this show repeatedly, I throw myself up under the bus all the time. Feel like I'm just a big old testimony, right? So, my first experience and with cheating for myself was my high school sweetheart that I just knew hands down that I was going to marry. It was like a 4 year relationship, kind of um, off and on type thing, but I seriously knew that I was going to marry this person. And so never had sex with her. Again, I thought I was focused. I thought I had a connection with me and my Johnson down there that we were not going to throw a flag on the play type thing. So I found I found myself in a situation where I had to back out of
Mm-hmm.
because seriously, that wasn't the intended flag to be thrown to cheat with the person that I cheated with sexually. I actually went in to help an individual that I thought needed help. And unfortunately, I found out years later, months later, heck, weeks, that in so many ways, I felt like it was a ploy to my ending at that time. And I fell for it. And like I was saying to you, only thing that I could say that did not make me turn my feet and walk out was that I was straight. I was a coward. I was weak. I was weak minded. Um, I can even go as far as say uneducated. Definitely when it came to, even though I was sexually active, but definitely just uneducated all around. And so put in that situation where I had a female throwing herself at me, my response, I'm playing decisions in my head and I'm constantly losing games where if I leave, this will happen. If I stay, this will happen. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And like I told you, I called on everybody in my head except for God and to get me out of the situation, which I end up falling victim to my own stupidity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of days went past after that happened. I've forgotten about it, which I am that person still, even then. If I lay down and have sex with you, I feel like I'm in a relationship with you. So I'm literally battling myself. I'm my worst own demon. I didn't need the devil to sit play devil advocate with me. I was doing it myself because now I'm torn. And it wasn't until my girlfriend called and was like, hey, so I need to talk to you. And I'm like, sure, because I'm having a great time with my friends at the moment. And she hits me with, so you cheat with what you call it? Huh? Click click, I hung the phone up. The best man move ever, you know? The best man move ever, right?
Wow.
And I never talked to her again. But the reason why I hung up the phone, which I should talk to her, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I hung up the phone was that part of me saying that you should have called in the first place and said, "Hey, um, I just did one of the worst things in my entire life. I was supposed to be waiting for you, but I gave myself to someone else. And the right thing for me to do is to be with that person because that's what I did. I went back um, against every fiber in my body and got in a relationship with that person. 2 kids later, marriage, maybe 4 or 5 years into my marriage later, um, I'm talking to her because after a while, we started back talking, my ex that I cheated on, and we were still friends a little bit later after the smoke cleared. And so I asked her, like, hey, honestly, would you forgiven me? And she was like, I did. I just wanted to talk to you. Not saying that I wasn't hurt, wasn't mad, and not saying that we didn't need to talk about it. But yeah, I did because I wanted to be with you. And that hurt me more than anything because that's what I wanted. But I was like, how can I face her and knowing that I did that? You know.
There are people who believe once a cheater, always a cheater.
Mm.
They will take that to their graves, etched in their tombstones, because that is what they believe. I personally hold that there are two types of men. You are that man who is not the one who always a cheater applies to.
Yeah.
And let me explain what I mean. In these two types of men who are cheaters, and of course, this also applies to women, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically in the example that we're using right now, there are some men who feel entitled to a woman's emotions. Most of the time, these are the men who will catcall her, then call her out of her name when she ignores him or responds in any way that isn't just
Mm-hmm.
answering him. Suppose he ends up in a relationship with a woman and he wants to have sex with her and she says no, and he asks her, why? Are you sick? What's the problem? You shouldn't have said no. So the reason that you have must be something that you need to resolve, because when I come for it, I'm supposed to get it. So what's the issue?
Wow.
Most of the time, men don't say that out loud, but that's what their behavior dictates. So now we go to this guy. Let's say that he marries someone, and
Okay.
then he says, I am so entitled to all of any woman's emotion that I want because I'm a man. That's what society enables me to do. That's what my father told me I should do. That's what the whole world says is okay. You've seen the movies, you've seen the commercials, you've seen the TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And women are emotional creatures anyway. So once they have a good cry, go sit in the corner, whatever, then they'll get over it and everything will be fine. That kind of man who has learned nothing from the hurt that he has imparted onto the woman, he will probably cheat again.
I can see that.
But the guy who recognizes his folly and says, even though I know I wasn't right, I'm sorry, and I want to try to work this out with you, he probably won't. So I don't personally believe once a cheater, always a cheater, because it depends on the man.
Okay, it's kind of. I guess you can also kind of different topic, but you can kind of pair that up with that very lovely saying that a lot of people say. Can't change a garden tool into a housewife. and but
There's a counter to that statement too, and it applies to the men who are community sad pieces. You can't change him into a husband either. That's
exactly, exactly. Which a lot of women try to do though. knowing that they're already taken. They try and make them their husband in so many ways.
Hmm.
Um, which now that was a physical example of how how cheating, that sexual cheating thing. I also have I want to say emotional, mental, like cheating situation. Let me post
Before
this
we
comment.
before we jump all the way in further, I have one more um, point that I wanted to make about cheating in general.
Okay.
I want us to recognize that men and women are not playing on the same level ground when it comes to cheating, particularly because men and women are socialized differently with regard to the value of a relationship. Women are told from their birth that they need to focus on being married. The only thing they're ever exposed there's the only thing they're ever supposed to aspire untoward is marriage and having kids. So the priority of a relationship for her is always at the top. But men, on the other hand, are said marriage is a ball and chain. Avoid it for as long as you can,
Yeah.
and and don't have any part of it. She's only going to tie you down. She's going to keep
Yeah.
you having so much fun. Most of that
Yeah.
fun is with other women. So the priority of a relationship to him is at the bottom, if not underneath the bottom. So I want us to keep that in the back of our minds as we consider the activity that we're calling cheating, and the idea that against certain backdrops, men and women are not coming at it from the same direction.
It is told. It is aired actually. Social media, tech, entertainment, books, for men to basically go out and soil the royal oats and be okay with it. Um, the first comment said men who are about power and control will cheat again because of a selfish addiction and fail to be introspective and face the reality of their personhood. And we talked about this behind scenes. Definitely. We
Yes,
are going to get into that very thing. Miss Monique says facts. That's true. There is a difference.
yes,
Um, and the reason why, guys, I'm throwing myself up under the bus is I'm going to get into that. It goes back to the title. Cheating is not an accident.
hmm,
You know darn well what you are doing and not doing in order to get yourself in this position. Um, my thing is the emotional form of cheating that I did was at the very beginning of my marriage. Um, and this is where that co- um, communication barrier comes into play. Me and my ex-wife were like, again, just on different brain waves and educational levels and whatnot. I can't say that my previous marriage inspired me to finish school, which that was like cool. But communication, dead. I come from a family where communication wasn't great. She definitely came from a family where communication was just straight awful. And so um, this picture is not to paint her as a bad person. Again, let me establish where we came from. We come from different places, but I want to say similar communication barriers.
yeah,
Just was never really taught what it was meant to communicate in relationships, and it showed. Me and me not hiding anything, her coming across the fact that, which I don't do it anymore, but that I looked at pornography. I didn't know I had to hide pornography. I didn't hide pornography. It was like right there, and she saw it, and so it was like a big old thing. Her family was like, "That's the devil. You can't be watching that." And and from that point, I just stopped doing it. But there was a situation that came apart where this is gonna sound funny, and it's still funny to this day. It wasn't funny at the time because I just never understood, and I could never. I don't think to this point, even if I would bring it up, she'd be able to get me a some form of complete answer. Um, Making a long story short, she came in from a long trip, and on this long trip, we're getting ready to do some business, get down and, do some things, right? I'm very happy because this is what we're about to do. We're married, we're supposed to do things like this, right? So she hits me with, on my way up here, coming home, I was thinking about cheating on you. I'm in mid clothes taking off stage, right? And
Wow.
look, and I'm like mouth drop, mic drop, whatever you want to say. It's just you can hear crickets.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And her demeanor is like it's just we having a great conversation. No, we are not.
No.
Breaks. Hold the phone. What? Did you hear what you just said? Right? Yeah. It just crossed my mind. So now I went from doing this to and she got upset because I did not want to continue with the sex escapades. And I'm like, no, we have to talk about this. This is something serious. Not saying that I was mad. I was just really thrown off. And I want to get to the bottom of this before I sit and I commence with having sex. And because that's what it is right now, because I'm not going to make love with someone that's thinking about cheating on me.
Right.
And so she gets mad and she gives me her back. And we don't talk about this situation. So now, this is where the I'm gonna get you back theory comes in. Now, my previous ex-wife knows that I come from a previous relationship prior to her where I was cheated on. And this is with a person that I cheated on with my supposed to have been wife, my only wife ever. I stayed with that person reluctantly for 4 years, and so she knew my background. And for you to come to the bedroom with this, my thing is, well, I'm already married to you, and my mindset is I'm not getting a divorce because I'm supposed to get a divorce, but there's something playing back there saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get you before you get me," type thing. But I couldn't see myself doing it physically. I did it to a degree where I came across an opening with the type of job that I had, that I was talking to customers over the phone, and I was able to get someone's number. And so I was playing the long game with this person because they were all in another state. So my mindset was, I ain't gonna see this person anyway, but I was doing it openly. I wasn't hiding anything. I knew that she was nosy. She was going to find it. So it was like, I want her to feel this hurt that I felt type thing. And so when she finally came across it, she exploded. I did not expect her to explode the way that she exploded. And it took me back to where now I'm begging and pleading and apologizing. I did not mean, I definitely did not want this to be the way that this is happening right now. What can I do? She hit me with, I'll never be able to trust you ever again. And those words like just stitched in my heart. So from that moment to like, I want to say over half of the marriage, I felt like me personally that I was doing everything to try to get this person to trust me again. So that was my goal, regardless if that's what she felt or if that's what she knew, which I don't think she ever did, because it's another part I'm gonna hit later on at the end. That's what I was like going back to the very first thing, this time I wasn't hanging the phone up. I was going to face this head on. And whatever I needed to do, get back on the right track, that's what I'm going to do. That was my goal. But I also need you to understand where this comes from. That thing that we never talked about. We need to talk about that. Nope. We ain't gonna talk about that. That's old. So it goes back to what you were saying before we got on, where when someone does something, or like we were talking about men, which we do find men saying this, keep it in the past. Why are you bringing up the past?
Well, just to reiterate for the viewers, what the comment was expressly that women do this too, but more often we've heard men say after they've gotten caught cheating, I can't change the past. If I could, I would, but I can't change the past. That's what they fall back on, as if the fact that they can't change the past is supposed to absolve them from the responsibility of the hurt that they just caused for her and make her okay with what happened just because he can't change anything.
Yeah, so she was basically straight man wearing pants in this whole situation. Don't you dare bring that up. That's old news. This is what you done now type thing. And so Monique says, but men who cheat still need to be accountable for their actions. Definitely. And that even goes with women. It's just people in general. No one is really taking ownership of what they're doing because, like I stated at the very beginning of this whole show, we have normalized cheating. We've given it a pretty name that sounds a little sexy, a little cool to achieve this title. And so, hey, go for it. And it's like, it's a very welcoming type thing now. She also stated that that goes for women too. I didn't see that part. Alexa says breach of contract. I can definitely speak on that. I was on a habitual. I was an habitual cheater as a young woman. Um, she also states that I love the transparency here. If you built on a faulty foundation, you've already cheated on yourself first. That is totally correct. She also states that, well, it's facts, so I need to leave because uh, I did not break you, so I can't fix you neither. Accountability of the contract itself is deep. Yes. Mm.
While we're talking about the idea of cheaters taking accountability for what they've done, before we get to how normalized society is embracing cheating to be, most of the time when I've heard a person cheat, their first answer for why is you weren't meeting my needs anymore. You stopped spending time with me. You stopped taking me out. You stopped cooking for me. You stopped doing those things that started our relationship. And I needed those things, and you weren't there. What was I supposed to do? That's the justification that people give when they cheat. What I'd like to say to people who think that way is, first and foremost, stop it. The legitimacy of a need is no excuse for ill-gotten ways to meet that need. If you're broke, go try to rob a bank. And when you come out carrying these bags of money, the cops ask you, why did you rob this bank? You say, oh, it's not a crime. Don't worry about it. I'm just doing this because I needed the money. They're going to haul your tail off to jail so quick that you won't even wonder why they stopped to get gas on the way. There is no excuse when what you do is wrong, when you blame that wrong action on meeting some kind of need. Cheating is the very same way. when you're in a relationship that is not fulfilling to you anymore, it does not become your responsibility to find other ways to meet that need outside the relationship. It becomes your responsibility to talk to your person and explain to them, you and I were doing A, B, C, and D when we started. That's actually one of the things that I liked about that relationship. I understand now that because maybe both of us are working a little bit more, we're not seeing each other as much as we used to. Things are changing, and I'm feeling some kind of way because I need what we used to have.
Yes.
Those are the conversations that you have with people. That's the reason, again, because you can have that conversation, that having a need that is not met in a relationship does not become an excuse to cheat. Almost every person who's ever talked to me and confessed that they've cheated, they said it was because I had a need that the relationship wasn't meeting anymore. What was I supposed to do? And you were supposed to talk to your person, not go sleep with somebody else. That's what you're supposed to do. That doesn't have to be the rhetorical question that people present it as, because there is a black and white objective answer.
So, with you saying that, that kind of plays on that definition that I really wanted to talk about. That third one, the position oneself defensively near a particular area in anticipation of a play in that area. And I feel with what you just stated, that's what people do is like, oh, instead of me going to you and saying, I really just don't like the way that you talk to me. So I'm gonna go out and cheat on you, and then I'm gonna come back and or find someone that talks to me because I still love you supposedly and whatnot. So I think people, the anticipation of and going back to the normalizing cheating,
Mhm.
the normalizing of communicating with someone is not there. It's
That's right.
running away from communicating. Every it's like everywhere. People are like, don't don't stay and try and figure out. Even if you don't stay in a relationship, figure out what's going on with you. The reason for you taking these actions. Because I have found myself posting this everywhere and saying this. If you know that you're not at home and you're about to get in bed, and I'm having to get in this position because this is a great position for this. You're about to get into bed with somebody. Why can't you call your person and say, "Hey, so this is about to happen, and I don't really think we should be talking after this. We probably can if you want to, and I can give you a little bit on the reason for me doing this, but right now I am about to do this, and so it's not fair to you to be in a relationship with me. So, because obviously I don't love you enough." And the response that I get from people on in comments are, "Why am I going to tell on myself? Why do it in the first place?"
People who ask why are really, really trying to miss the point.
You broke up a little bit. I think you.
The people who ask, why should you tell on yourself?
Mhm.
They must be trying to miss the point.
Exactly.
What you're saying is, this goes back to what I was about to say just a minute also. If you heard men cheat, women too, but specifically men, if you heard men cheat, they always say it was an accident.
Mm.
So, okay, man, let me explain something to me, Mr. Man, who has had this accident whereupon you find your penis in someone's vagina. Why don't you find your penis in other places by accident? If you had no control and this was such a happenstance of occurrence, why is that the only way this always encounter you always have this encounter? You've never heard a man say, I tripped and fell and my penis ended up between the cracks in the sidewalk.
Yeah,
You've never
exactly
heard
right.
him say, I tripped and fell and the city workers had to come and pick the grate up out of the ground so that I could get out of it after I fell, and there that was.
Hmm.
When oftentimes, mm, here's the thing: every accident is a mistake, but not every mistake is an accident.
There you go.
Let me give an example of that. Let's suppose I'm guilty of this. I'll go ahead and confess. If you go grocery shopping, you don't want to make 5 trips to the car. You have 5 bags in this hand with 3 hanging off your elbow, 5 bags in this hand with 5 hanging off your elbow over here, and the case of water up here. So, so you're trying to get into your house with all of these groceries. You walk past a console table right inside your door, and you knock over a decor item onto the floor because you're carrying all of those bags.
Hmm.
Breaking that decor item is an accident. That was innocent. You didn't mean to do that, but it happened in the course of the other activity that you were engaged in that moment. What other activity should you be engaged in any moment for sex to be an accident? By the time you get there, you've already made so many wrong decisions that do not qualify as the accident. But
Yep.
people want to call these bad mistakes that end in adultery, that end in infidelity, that end in cheating, they want to call those accidents because
Yep.
you understand that accidents are innocent. You
Yep.
understand that an accident can happen when you weren't even trying to.
Yep.
There is no situation where you consciously end up in a place where you are naked with another person by accident. All of those bad decisions that you made that led up to that encounter are not accidents. They are mistakes that people want to pass off as the innocence of an accident when they want to be when they don't want the person that they've cheated on to leave them.
Yeah, they try to justify the cheat.
Mm,
And because I can say that those decisions that I made that got me to that first point of cheating, where I did the actual physical act, um, I had very opportune time to say no to everything.
and you
And
always will, not just you, but every man.
yeah, and so it's so again, I like that was my thing. I was like, there's no need for me to even talk to this person. I might as well just hang up the phone because I can't get from out of this. I had a chance not to do it in the first place, but I fell victim to my own, again, it's my own stupidity
Yeah.
and thinking that me walking away from the situation and regardless of what this person was going to say about me was going to just tarnish my image or whatnot. It shouldn't have mattered because if I really cared about the other person, and I did, and that's what was so hard about it, I did care. So I think that was like probably one of the biggest things for me. How could I do that and I care for this person? And so I was like, the best thing for me to do is because what I'm known for myself is I can't not. And that person was telling me about stories of being used by me, and so that played a harp tune in my head too. Now I done did something that this person done sat up here and told me a story about. So I definitely can't just sit up here and not own up to what I just did.
Hmm.
So um to blow the door wide open even more, I'm gonna read these comments first. And someone said, "Speak that truth, Dr. Evelyn." Children. Also, Alexa says, "Children already are brought up seeking validation from their parents." She also stated, "We must be courageous enough to have crucial conversations about the gap in the needs." not being met yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, accidents are a poor excuse because consent or purposeful intent is involved. I love
Absolutely.
that. That
Absolutely.
is so
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Um, Also, you can expect profession built on a family foundation that has not been transmuted and or purified. It's just a delusion thing. It's trauma bonding toxic, and you have to let it go by giving space to grow, then rebuild if you are compatible.
Compatible. Yeah.
Um, the behaviors set the um, directory towards the hey guys, stop throwing these big words at me. uh, uh, the I'm trying. I love it because I have, especially with my MS, I have issues with pronunciation. So cool. Uh, Illicite encounter. Um, you're dis- you're disconnected from yourself by building while being superficial. So you are out of tune with yourself, aka not having an open heart, not receiving, not in tune with your feminine side. And I can see all you guys' points. Um, and again, let me spit out a disclaimer. This is in no form of fashion trying to pin someone to be a bad person, because a lot what you guys have stated, um, this person went through a lot of trauma after I realized that no matter what I do, no matter what I say, um, I could I can couldn't change anything, and so I got to a point where I was brave enough for myself to walk away from a situation. Um, but something that I wanted to talk about is it is not the past if something is continuously going on, regardless if it's with numerous people. It wasn't John from 1962, it was Calvin in 2001, and Mitch in 2021. Cheating is cheating.
Mhm.
So if you cheated back then and cheated in the middle and you cheated now, obviously we have not addressed the issue. So that was my theme. It was always told to me when this person decided to go on their cheat escapade that why are you bringing up old news when they were not cheating? You always living in the past.
Wow.
Then you can start by cheating again. And I would try to address it while I was present. You run from it.
Mm.
Then when you're not cheating and I'm trying to bring it up, why you living in the past? Why you want to let that go? Because it hadn't changed. You're still doing the same thing. So obviously, and people do that. Like, why are you bringing up the past? It was, I Miss Whitney, I don't know. I don't get it.
One of the reasons that with two reasons jump out as an undergirding for why people bring up past indiscretions. And I call them indiscretions to be polite because right now nothing about it is secret. While you have your side chick over there, your side piece over here, they're not indiscretions the way that they used to be considered. But for the point of our discussion, when people are cheating, one of the reasons that the victim of the cheater, in the one who was cheated on in the relationship, will bring up the past, there are two reasons. One of them is if they really haven't healed from
Mhm.
the wound that the other person's cheating caused, they might not be trying to hurt the cheater. They might just be saying, listen, you cheated on me before, and I'm still struggling with being able to trust you again.
Mm-hmm.
If the person is honest with themselves about that cheating encounter and they really are trying to build that person's trust again, they're not going to be angry.
Right.
They're gonna say, I recognize that I hurt you. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that in taking responsibility for what I did to you in the breaking of this trust,
Mm-hmm.
I will hold your hand and walk you back toward a trust relationship. If you need me to call you every hour, okay. If you need me to sit with you, okay. Because they recognize that they've hurt that person and they're trying to build that trust back. The other reason okay, no. Before I get to the other reason, I have to say this. If a person has been cheated on and they say to the cheater, I need to trust you again, but I don't because of what happened in the past, and the cheater says, get the over it. It was in the past, let it go. I'm done with this. That person has less of a connection to what the actual injury was to the victim of the cheating. That person, in most cases, does not recognize how much damage was done to the relationship when that person who was cheated on is saying, this is what happened and this is what I need you to do now.
Mm-hmm.
That person most often is remorseless about the cheating. And in a lot of cases, if he claims to love her, yes, he loves things about her, but he is still his own priority. If he could cheat, she needs to recognize that, number one. But he needs to be more in tune. Like I think it was Monique who was saying earlier, to be in tune with how she is experiencing what he did. So those two responses could happen. But the second reason that a person might say, oh, you cheated and I'm having a problem with that now, they could be doing that to hold that guilt over their head. They
Mm-hmm.
could be reminding them of the past as a way to control them. And as much as you want to understand that someone has been hurt, that doesn't give them the license to become a manipulator.
Yeah.
And those types of dynamics are often in play when we deal with infidelity in relationships. And it's so funny that we're having this conversation about relationships because we recognize the substance of relationships. Society at large is trying to dispose of the whole
Yep.
concept of monogamy. They're
Yes.
trying to dispose of the idea that one person could be committed to one other person and just
Mm-hmm.
let that relationship be what it is. Now, all this reality TV that people watch, and it's the mm, the unmarried guy and the
Yeah.
unmarried woman. I'm trying not to name names, but shows like that. And then there's some other ones that I there's a whole litany of them. But
Yes. Yep.
there are some other shows that do such a disservice to the journey of finding companionship that people then look for that dysfunction in their own lives. And when they meet genuine people, that good, solid relationships becomes boring to them
Yes.
because they've cultivated and conditioned themselves to want after the carnal, to want after the seedy, to feed on what is sensational. And once they build that appetite toward that wickedness,
Mm-hmm.
and then good things happen to them, they meet a solid person, they meet somebody who's interested in committing to one person, they meet that person who is um, emotionally evolved enough to process through their trauma and have a communicative exchange. That's boring to them. They don't want to have anything to do with that because that's not exciting enough. And then I ask myself the question, to them it's rhetorical, but it's really like, how do people expect to find something genuine when they're looking in all the false places for it?
Exactly.
That takes us back to one of your, I think it was your first definition, the artifice. Artifice is the root word of artificial.
Ah, oh,
You're
cool.
you're not going to find substance in that which is artificial. That's why they call it fool's gold,
Mm.
because you know that it's worthless. It only looks pretty on the outside. So now people are clamoring for these relationships. They're clamoring for companionship, looking for it in these surface relationships and wondering why the pieces aren't falling together. No, if you don't like what you're getting, change what you're doing.
I think that's why me and Lisa is transparent, like how we are, because we would love people to get back to the root. You know what? To be honest, I don't even think there was truly. Um, I'm not even gonna say it wasn't. There were, but they were just so small and not highlighted enough for people to understand that you don't have to be in a relationship and argue. You know, is discussions, conversations. You're not the same person. You're going to disagree on a lot of things, and
Shout over here.
yeah, it's not rocket science that if you feel that you have to argue in a relationship and that what makes a relationship, then you're more toxic than the person that you're in a relationship with. I have people really sitting up here saying that, oh man, we had our first blow up. So, we've gotten over that step. So we're good now. No.
Right.
Uh, no, 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 no.
The
No, 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 no.
that is more evidence of greater problems. And it's just so, oh my goodness. I agree so much with you that people don't have to have arguments in relationships. They can have discussions. Because, like you said, I fully believe this. I've been practicing it and preaching it forever. Two intelligent, thinking people will not always see eye to eye.
Hmm.
So, why does everybody think that your relationship is good and perfect and healthy if you never have disagreements? Because you're going to have disagreements. The argument is the escalation point to which it does not have to arise. And
Yeah.
people don't get that. Many people don't understand the
If
separation
it, if it
between
if it
having.
don't get to that, then we ain't. It just ain't right. And we don't supposed to have a legitimate discussion and just give each other a kiss and go to sleep. Nah, we supposed to go. Hey, top of everything. But let me do these comments because there's one more thing I want to state. We're gonna go over a little bit. Um, Alexis says, I personally trust that you've only become self realized through another person. You're related somehow on the same frequency. You two were only being promiscuous in two different ways. When you view porn, you are still intaking frequencies, information, and you are manifesting lower in titles in different forms. And the thing about that is so true, but I can't say for myself, not trying to um, toot my own horn. It only took that one time because, again, from where I came from, it was never taught that pornography was bad.
Mhm.
I never came across that. So when she said, hey, no, no, you can't be doing that, it stopped. And that's something I pride myself on. The fact, again, we should not have a argument about a disagreement. And that's the compromisation that people don't understand. When you sit and compromise, it's not that I did become a slave in my previous marriage, only because of myself. And there's someone that said a comment, I'm going to address that with that part too. But, men think a woman submitting is slavery. No, my submission to her is if we come across something that's bothering you, I should be able to either explain to you why I need to have this in my life, or understand why you don't need it in yours.
Mhm.
And if I am going to continue with it, it should be a legitimate reason to where this person understands and says, you know what, I see. Okay, so I step back, but porn is not something that you should be able to just say, hey, I just really need to be looking at other people while you are in the while you're up in the other room, but I really need this. You know, I need this. You
Right.
shouldn't be able to do
That, yeah. That.
that. Trust, bond, connection. Many are not with their true counterparts in many opinions. I do trust and believe that. Spiritually, already entering third parties, I've learned I like to be loyal to myself first and consider a companionship. But the key thing is not needing, just wanting. Um, and it's kind of like what goes on. The wanting overpowers the need. And when I say need, I don't need my person that I have. I don't need her. If she doesn't need me, I want her. Meaning that she's her own person and I am my own person at the end of the day. And the want for her just makes what I am already even more than what I am 100%. It goes over that 100%. It adds to me being full already. And I think
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that goes back to what you were just basically stating. You do have to love yourself. And a lot of people don't do that. So the question that I wanted to hit, Ms. Whitney, was why do you think people settle for the artificial instead the real? And let me throw myself on the tracks again so I can get ran over by this train, right? Again,
Hey,
disclaimer. My ex-wife, once I realized that I married her and she didn't marry me,
mm,
it was a situation to where I'm at odds with myself because again, divorce for me is not an option. So how can I fix this? So it went from me being a husband to becoming and I'm serious about it when I say this now, legitimate friend and counselor, trying to figure out why are we giving ourselves to someone else when you got someone here right in front of you. And so I was doing myself this justice, and I say this to everybody. That first initial cheat, even on my part, she could have left me, and instead of saying, I think it was more of a I'm gonna stay in this relationship. I can't trust you, but I don't want a divorce neither because it may look bad on my part. But I want to be with this particular person. I've always wanted to be with this particular person, and so I'm going to venture out to that. It wasn't until maybe I want to say before I got diagnosed 5 years later, prior, I think, if I'm not mistaken, where she finally came out and said, "Okay, you know what? I am not going to stop doing this. I want to be with this person. This person wants to be with me." So, but I couldn't take it. I forced a person. Nah, we can't. We married. We can't do this. We can't break this off. You know you love me. You know you love me. You know you love me. So the first initial cheat, my thing is, I can sit and back then I can be hurt about that. But all the other things, because I forced someone to be in a relationship that I knew darn time well they didn't want to be in, that's my responsibility. I have to take that axe. I have to sit up here and say, I was dumb for 8 years. So, and that's what people are not saying. You have these people that
right.
are sitting, I mean, like front row seat, watching their person go out and cheat,
Mm,
knowing that this person is not going to own up to it. and you're wanting to catch them, and you have caught them, but the fact that you can't get closure, this person saying, I effed you over, and that's just what it is. Now you can walk away. Why can't you just walk away anyway? It's like one of the hardest things, and I had to do that with my. I had to be the one because I even asked. I put divorce on the table, and it was like, hey, why won't you give me a divorce? Couldn't explain that neither. You don't want to be with me. Why can't you give me a divorce? Um, so I had to walk away. And when you at that point and you choose not to, you're doing more harm to yourself. Definitely if kids are involved, because not only does that open the door for your kids to see something that they may feel once they start getting in relationships that they should allow,
Right.
you traumatize yourself.
Right. Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
I had to just that the marriage made me realize how broken I truly was at the very end when I walked away, um, because I didn't know I was as broken as I was. But for someone, regardless of me being sick and not being able to walk and whatnot, uh, I didn't know that I was looking for that attention from. I thought the only way for me to be whole that I needed that particular a woman, and how society shows men as in if you're no woman should take care of a man, regardless. And I stayed, and the best thing that ever happened to me, a counselor, and I've said this plenty of times on the show, counselor coming to me and saying, Mr. Williams, I love your money. You can continuously come to me and give me your money, but I have two options for you. And she was serious but laughing at the same time. She had to tell me twice though. You can either come in the office and stop complaining if you're going to choose to stay, or leave the situation. And she
Yeah.
left it like that.
Yeah.
And
That's pretty much it.
listened to me. She didn't say anything else. She didn't give me no advice. I was listening, but if she were to do this and if she were to do that, she just listened and okay, time's up. I will see you next Wednesday.
Oh my.
Yeah, and that was like the best thing that I ever gotten from someone after the second time. The first time I wasn't paying no attention. The second time it really sunk in, and she's right. I'm like, you, and this only talking to people that know that their other person is doing God knows what. If you don't know, and this person is just that good that they're hiding their stuff, then I don't blame you for being in a full relationship or marriage. But if you know and you've been sitting there for years, you can't wait till you've gotten divorced or separated and you're going out and you're just making the other person look horrible and not stating the true facts of you allowed. And what I mean about allow, not allow someone to cheat on you, but you allow yourself to become a victim where you didn't have to be. And that's what I did. And that's why this holds a place in my heart, because the person that's cheating has the accountability of saying, I don't have to, I know I'm going to go do this. Before I even walk out the door, listen, let me sit you down. First, let me tell you, kind of like what Ms. Whitney was saying earlier, the communication of, hey, I just don't like the way you leave the toilet seat up, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've cured that. What you men get past the pride and just sit on the toilet to pee. You won't have to worry about the toilet seat being up. That's it. That answers that for women. So women, sit up and you tell your man, go sit your tail on the toilet next time since you don't want to wipe off the seat.
Okay. I
But
was not expecting that, but okay. Very cool.
you know, I'm just saying, it's just what it is. But
Very cool. Very
I,
cool.
I don't know.
To jump on the question that we had, why do people accept the artificial instead of the real? There are two reasons, I think. One is that they don't know the difference. There are
I think
people.
that's giving too many people an excuse, Miss Whitney.
Well, whoa. At some level, we do have to accept that the brokenness that some parents teach their children makes them believe that dysfunction is the right thing. They don't know that it's dysfunctional because it's all they've been taught. So sometimes they don't really know that there is better. They don't know that what they've been suffering is not the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
The other reason that people accept the artificial instead of waiting for or going after the true, oftentimes they don't believe that the true will come and the artificial is better than nothing.
Ah,
Those people are the ones that you're talking about when you say things like, you can't go out there after you've been cheated on and make the cheater look like such a bad person when you allow
okay.
that
I,
victimization.
I see it because that's what I did. That's pretty much what I did. You know, I can't leave this. I have to settle for this because what woman is going to want a man in a wheelchair or a man that has a cane that's only 30 something years old? So I get it. Gotcha. Go ahead.
Yeah. And because of those reasons, both of those reasons, the second reason has more of a root in self-worth than the first reason does. Because with the first reason, even if you've been taught that this is the way it's supposed to be, you can decide for yourself that that's not the way you're going to do anything.
Yeah.
The second reason, people who may not have the self worth to decide that the way they're being mistreated is not acceptable and stand up and walk away, some, hmm, a lot of women don't have that self worth. And that
That
goes
was
back to
me.
one of the men, too.
Yeah.
And
That was me.
that goes back to the point that we were saying at the very onset of the onset of the conversation. The idea that men and women are socialized differently when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
While men have been abused, I'm not discrediting or mitigating the severity of that. More often than not, we see the woman as a victim in an abusive relationship. And that's physically abusive, that's emotionally abusive, that's psychologically abusive. An example of psychological abuse would be telling someone that you don't need them and then being mad when they do things to try to leave you.
Hmm.
If you said you didn't need me, why are you upset that I'm leaving? So that back and forth that people struggle with is a form of psychological abuse. But
I had to say that.
when women are dealing with that, they don't they feel like if I leave this relationship, then I'm not going to be valuable. People are going to look at me like I'm worthless. They're going to look at me like he is not satisfied because I have done something wrong.
Hmm.
Men, by and large, don't carry that burden. If a man leaves a relationship, most people are going to congratulate him and say, it's about time. We told you not to get married. We told you not to do that. We told you it was just going to be misery. But when women leave a relationship, it's like, you do the whole coddle thing, and the movies say that you sit in sweatpants that are 5 sizes too big with a big tub of ice cream and this ridiculous top knot, that's how
Hey,
you're supposed to mourn. No,
listen, don't talk about me like that because that was me. I'm sorry, I had to throw that out there.
I totally receive what you're saying. I'm just making the point again that men and women, as we're socialized differently, we respond to relationship pressures differently. So why a woman wouldn't walk away has more to do with her value and her worth at large and in general than what would satisfy a guy if he walked away from a relationship that he wasn't satisfied with. But that goes like with what you're saying. You're saying you've said before that you're a unicorn. You
Yeah, yeah,
that your experience is different from the mainstream paradigm. And I totally
yeah.
accept that. I'm not saying at all that all of these are hard line facts for men and these are hard line facts for women over here.
It's a large percentage though.
Yes, that percentage, that disproportionate percentage is undeniable. Absolutely it is. Especially when we talk about that at large, many women don't leave abusive relationships that they know are abusive because they're afraid to be judged by their friends and family for being worthless. They're afraid that that relationship gave them value. And if they put away that thing that gave them value, then they are inherently worthless.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, I just want to open some heads, scoop that foolishness out with a spoon and throw it away. But not everybody thinks that way. There are people who have been bombarded by the same societal nonsense and have responded differently and have said, I recognize that this is pressure and I choose not to yield. Coincidentally, if we can say that, next attack on that kind of person becomes you're too independent.
Yeah. Mm.
That is such foolishness, and the level of foolishness that is an entirely different situation. It's an entirely different discussion. But for the summary of where we are this evening, why people accept the artificial instead of what is the truth has a lot to do with how they perceive themselves, particularly in the expectation that the true may not be available, so the artificial is good enough, or they they really don't know that what they have is artificial and haven't yet learned what better can look like.
Yeah. So, guys, I'm going to run through these comments. We may have a brief moment to hit on some of them. Brian tuned in a little bit with something that someone said bam with. And so, disagreements are exciting with
Mm,
equal intelligence.
yes.
Definitely. Disagreements in relationships with two intelligent people are and can be healthy and exciting. For me, it's discussion is sexy to me. We have a great, deep conversation, regardless if we on different ends of the spectrum, but
Yeah.
we come in the middle. That is sexy as hell. I'm ready to do it afterwards. Let's go. uh, friction, friction does cause expansion. Um, and so with Brian, I went past. Darn, I hit the darn thing. Where we? At? I went past it. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Uh, that's the truth. Because it's easier to be the victim. Some people would rather settle for a piece of someone than to be alone. That wasn't for me, Brian, and I'm not saying that you were talking about me, but that wasn't for me. It's like seriously, I had bought into a societal truth of that if a man can't do for his family, then a man is worthless, and so I stayed in an unbearable situation that really put me in harm's way, not only for myself but for the other person. Um, and it damaged my kids, and so it's yeah. I refuse to be put in that situation ever again. And the only way for me not to anyone not to be put in a situation like that is again taking accountability for your part of the situation. Brian also stated because the real involves having uncomfortable and courageous dialogue with their partner. I think this is where the BAM came in at. And some of them don't want to face themselves.
That's
Again, like I said, have a uncomfortable courageous dialogue with me, baby. Come on, let's go. It's
And
like the
I want to jump in right here on these 2 points. The two reasons that I gave that people accept the artificial versus going after the real, honestly, give that person the benefit of the doubt that they either didn't know or they have low enough self-worth that having the artificial is better than nothing. What
mm-hmm.
Brian and I'm calling him Edward, he knows why. What Brian and Edward are talking about are chosen willful victimhood.
Yes.
When willful victimhood, yeah, when you don't want to come out of playing the victim because it's easier to blame the other person than to look at whatever is going on inside. That's a different reason that they say it, and we didn't touch on those in the two that I had given. So these fabulous additions, gentlemen.
He stated pretty much continuing with that, and some like being victim because it gets sympathy and attention, and that's how they derive their self-worth and receive validation.
Yeah.
Exactly. The socialization of men within a power and control society is damaging to men and hurt people hurt people. And I say that, and we're going to end it with this again. That in itself gave me more of a reason to get the strength to walk away, because my last child, I saw myself, I've already damaged my 4 kids prior, being in relationships that were just not real. I'm not going to say meant to be, but wasn't meant to be as long as they should, that they end up being. They shouldn't have been that long. And so many people are staying in marriages because kids, not realizing that if your kids, which kids are now smarter coming out of the vagina, like at the very beginning, than we were, and then our parents were, they automatically they nosy, so they hear the arguments, they see the cheating, they see the mental abuse that their parents are doing amongst each other, and it becomes normal. So when they go out and they looking for relationships, they deem these relationships as, oh crap, this must be a normal thing. My man or my woman cheating on me, because it's pretty much what happened with my mom and my dad.
Yes.
It's a whole different topic in itself, but changing the narrative. And we're gonna close. We're closing out. Change the narrative, Ms. Whitney.
If I could offer just a closing thought on this.
Yes.
The topic of tonight was cheating is not an accident, it is on purpose. I would like to reiterate that I do not believe once a cheater, always a cheater, but the difference is the type of person. If that person recognizes that both those men, both those women made the same bad decisions,
Mm-hmm.
but one recognizes the gravity and takes accountability for it, while the other still blames the victim.
Yes.
So it's not once a cheater, always a cheater. If the victim blamer will likely cheat again, but the one who learns from it will likely be the one who doesn't. So people should really recognize that it's not really fair to say you cheated once, that's going to be the total trajectory of your life. No, that isn't fair. But you should recognize what makes the difference. If the person has learned from it and is actually moving forward in a reconciliatory way with the victim, the person that they cheated on, they may not cheat again. But the other person who blames the victim and feels entitled to those other people's emotions without taking any responsibility onto themselves, they will likely cheat again.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what changing the narratives in this situation is: taking accountability and having that
Love that word.
that that discussion at the very beginning, trying to, because you having that one break and sitting down and saying it's just not the same anymore. You know what that does for you? I'm gonna go ahead and say it makes whomever is going out of outside to go cheat a freaking hero and a top man or a top woman, because they're saying before I go out and make this terrible decision that I know may end up hurting you, a person that I call myself loving, let me explain to you that it's not the same anymore. I don't know what happened. I don't know where we fell off the tracks at, but I would like to get back on. But if I can't, or if we can't, then I think we should go our separate ways, because how I'm feeling right now, I feel like going out there. And it's not fair to you, nor is it fair to me. That's changing the narrative, definitely, in this situation of cheating. So who is going to be man or woman enough to do so? I'm gonna be honest, I don't see it happening no time soon, but it would be nice if we were to be the bigger person and stop it, because you wouldn't have to cheat if you walked away from it, knowing that it's not there anymore.
That kind of emotional responsibility is a heavy burden, because you have to be vulnerable to that person when you're telling them how you feel about what things have changed. And if that courageous was the word that was used in one of the comments, that you have to be courageous in these conversations and let your needs be known and give that person full autonomy in how they respond to it. That kind of that kind of emotional maturity is, I said a few minutes ago, it's a burden, because you don't always know that you're going to be met with its reciprocal. You don't always know if the person's going to receive what you're saying with the weight of what you're saying it as, and if they're going to respond to it in a way that's conducive to your growth together, or if they're going to clown you, basically. But that is still the most mature thing that you should do. Talk to that person about why you're thinking about going out, how your needs have changed, how the relationship is in meeting those needs, and what you all might have to do. If you make the adjustments and compromise and work together, then you can stay forward, focused, and not cheating. But if there is no compromise and nobody's willing to give either way, then it is time to walk. That condition means that every single instance where adultery has taken place was perfectly preventable.
Yep. Well, guys, we totally appreciate you staying. If you stay a couple of seconds, you will see you will see where you can see our other shows where you can find us at. So we totally hey, come on.
Okay, I'm sorry, but it's been on my face.
So again, thank you so much, guys. We totally appreciate it. We'll see you. We have two more shows next Wednesday out there, I do believe. Bye.
Good night.